Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial I'm going to create a game object which is going to represent my game. So I want to have some kind of object that actually deals with drawing the game and updating the game as a whole. And at the moment I've got this game view class here, and I've got a game runner which deals with the kind of multi-threading aspect, the kind of game loop. It deals with running stuff at the right time. But I think I'd like to also create a game object which this runner runs, and I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'll right click the package here, and this structure is kind of slightly arbitrary and not necessarily the absolute 100% best way to do this, but it seems like a way that's reasonably simple and reasonably quick and not too badly structured. So I'll call this game, and I want my game to have several kind of phases to it. So it's going to have, we're going to of course need to have a constructor, and to the constructor I'm going to have to supply some things, in particular probably the surface holder, because the game is going to have to lock that to get a canvas. And so let's have a surface holder here, and I'm going to also pass it probably a resources object, because it's going to have to load somewhere anyway. We're going to have to load the actual bitmaps and sounds that we're going to use in this simple game, and I suppose the game is a reasonable place to do it, although I'm not completely decided in my own mind, but let's pick a course and stick to it. So let's have a private surface holder and a private resources resource. Actually, it probably would have been quicker to define these variables first and then get Eclipse to automatically generate the constructor, but this will also do. Here's my, I don't know how to get rid of this error in Eclipse which came up since the last time I updated it, but I'm hoping a future update is going to fix it. Let's say this dot resource equals resource. That probably should be resources actually. This is the resources object. I can get things like the bitmap and the sounds from. And now I'm going to give this a method called init, and this is going to be something that gets called to actually do the loading of stuff. So let's say public void init. So that the idea is that's going to be called once per game. And in this tutorial I'm not going to implement, as I said before, I'm not going to implement saving and loading of the game state, and you could do that if you wanted using shared preferences or even a SQLite database or any number of other techniques, but I'm not going to implement that here because that's not specific to animation. And I'm going to have a public void update, and I'm going to pass the time elapsed to the update method. That's the time elapsed since update was last called, which I'm going to figure out in my game runner. And we need that in order to figure out how far to move our game along. If we're going to animate a ball, which I'm going to, then to know how long the ball should have moved since the last update, I need to know how long has passed since this method was last called. And regardless of what you do, you can't be sure that anything's going to happen on the dot at an exact regular interval in Java. So I'll figure that out and pass it in. And then let's also have a public void draw, and that probably doesn't need to take anything because that's gonna get the canvas from the holder here and draw stuff on it. And then just to wire this in to be going on with, although I'm going to do more work on this bit by bit. In my game view, I'm creating this game runner that handles the multi-threading, but I'm also going to create a game. So let's say private game, and when the surface is created, I can then say game equals new game, and I can pass that to my game runner to actually run it. And that's probably all I need to do for the moment, I think. Maybe I'll have a kind of shut down method for the game, or maybe not, I'm not really sure yet. So I'm going to go to the game runner constructor, and I'm going to make it accept a game. So I haven't got a constructor yet, so let's define private game here. And the reason that I'm actually doing new game in my game view class is kind of just in case I want to interact directly with the game in the game view. And in particular, what I'm thinking of is that I might want to pass the touch events directly to the game rather than have to pass them through the game runner. So that's why I'm defining it here, even though it's actually the game runner that's actually going to call the draw and update methods. So I'm going to pass game to my game runner in a constructor, and let's just right click here and go to source and generate constructor using fields, and just tick game. There we go, and I'll get rid of super because I don't need that. And now in my run thread here, I can call the game methods. I'm going to get rid of this debug because I've used that and I know that it works now. It's actually running on my phone at the moment, and it's saying thread running every like 3 times a second or something. And in here I'm going to say game.update, and that's where we're going to update the logic of the game and update the positions of things. And I'm going to say game.draw, and that's going to just draw whatever should be on the screen at the time. Now, to figure out this kind of time elapsed since update was first called, I'll get rid of this sleep. I might put it in later if I want to do some more debugging, but I'll get rid of it for now. And I'm going to say, I'm going to give this, actually probably in run, I'm going to have a long, let's call this last time or something like that. And I'm going to set last time equal to system.current_time milliseconds. So last time is going to be set equal to the current time. And in the game loop, whenever I go around the loop, I'm going to say long now equals system.current_time milliseconds. And long elapsed now is going to be equal to the difference between now and last time. And after I've called the draw and update methods, I set last time equal to now. So if you've been programming for quite a while, you'll recognize that kind of pattern. And if you haven't, well, the idea is that we get the current time, and then we subtract from it whatever the last time we recorded was. We use that, and then we set the last time recorded to whatever we just got for now, so that the interval here elapsed is always going to be the difference between the two. It's going to be basically the amount of time that's elapsed since the last time we called this update method, which is what we need. And one other thing I'm going to do here is you have to think about, like, let's say we're updating the position of a ball on the screen, and this is not Android specific, it's just kind of general game programming. Then what if something's happened to the device we're running this on, and for some reason it hasn't called this for like a neon? Then we might end up with elapse being very, very big for some crazy reason, or maybe the game's been paused and resumed, although we're not actually allowing this game to be paused and resumed. In this case, if it's paused, I'm just going to recreate everything from scratch when it's resumed again with a new thread and a new game. But that could be something you want to implement, pause and resume. And so you have to think about, what if elapsed is a really huge number, and if you're calculating the position of a moving object based on elapsed, if you're not careful, you'll end up calculating that the object should be like 2 kilometers off the side of the screen or something. So what I'll say is, if elapsed is less than 100, let's say, or maybe even less than that, well, we'll try 100 milliseconds, then we'll do the update and the draw. And if it's going to be more than 100, that's more than 1/10 of a second, you can't have a playable game if it's a kind of motion-based game when the frame's only updating 10 times a second. So if the elapse is more than 1/10 of a second, then you might as well just not draw an update at all, and just wait until you reach a point where there's enough processing power to actually do the update in less than 1/10 of a second. So not being a game programmer, I'm not really sure how this is most frequently handled, but this seems like a reasonable way to me. So let's try this. We do need to do something there to avoid having avoid trying to draw things off the edge of the screen due to a very long time having elapsed between the last update. And that's probably all I'm going to do for this tutorial. Let's just take a look at, there's an error here, and that's because I've got to put in the right stuff to this constructor, which is going to be the holder. I'm going to use this holder that's passed into surface created, and I'm going to say get resources to get resources, and the game will then be able to load the bitmaps, and I think we'll probably look at that in the next tutorial. So that's it for this time. Nothing to show this time, but we've put the kind of basic plumbing in place now, basic structure of this game, and we can go ahead and load stuff and draw stuff, hopefully. So that's it for this time, and until next time, happy coding.